Um, like I was saying before, welcome to the first inaugural NLO podcast. This is going to be me, Dr. Ashley Smith, with my beautiful wife, Krystal Smith. And what we wanted to do today was just kind of, since it's our first one, it'll be the first podcast that we ever do. And probably nobody will ever hear this one, but it'll be good practice for us. We wanted to introduce ourselves to whoever does listen to it. We were joking earlier that we might send this to our family, and then, they'll tell us they listen to it, even though they won't, because, it's going to be boring for them. But maybe somebody will in the future listen to it. And if they ever do, maybe they can get our backstory a little bit here. I'm going to let my beautiful wife go ahead and take the reins here and kind of just give her backstory about how she got to get into the orthodontic world and how she met me and all that. And then I'll call in and follow up, and you guys can get a little backstory of us.
Well, my husband saw me for the first time and he fell in love.
That's very true.
And that was the end of the story.
That was just the beginning, baby.
No, so let's see. Let me think back. It's been so long since I started in dentistry. It was in 2010.
Yeah, and where were you? Where were you in 2010? Were you in Victoria?
At the time, I was living in Cuero. I went to school in Goliad, Texas.
How big is Goliad?
It's tiny.
Tiny?
Small, yeah.
Cool.
Probably like Cuero and Victoria's like the larger city, and that's where I ended up working. So my first job was, I went to dental assisting school.
Mm-hmm.
I finished that in about, I think it was a 9-week program, maybe 10 weeks.
And is it all week, or is it just on the weekends?
It was just one Saturday a week.
So it's basically 9 days.
Yeah. It was easy.
Well, yeah, and like you and I have hired a lot of people who've been to those, and it is an introduction, but they don't learn much, right? I mean, we have to really do a lot of training.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I don't. So half the day we did books,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in a dental office, like a doctor's office. The dentist, probably the one dentist in town, and he would reserve his Saturdays for this school, and it would we would do morning books, and then afternoon we'd actually sit in the clinic and work. We didn't have any patients, so we were just like pretending to assist and things like that. So it was nothing like working with an actual doctor.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up never working in a general practice, and my first job was one of the girls I graduated with. Her name also Krystal.
Yeah. This is a recurring issue in our lives, is that my wife, Krystal, has about 20 friends named Krystal, and she all refers to them the exact same way. And I'm left to figure out which Krystal she's talking about.
You should just know.
I should just know.
We'll have to figure out a differentiation between all of them at some point. But this is Krystal from Victoria.
Yeah.
So we graduated dental assisting school together, and she ended up working after we graduated with practice. I don't know if I should say the name.
Yeah, I think that's fine. In fact, I don't. Was it Sun?
Yeah, it was Sun Orthodontics in Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Because Sun doesn't even exist anymore. So.
No. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Good. So she was like, hey, I got this job at this orthodontist. It's in Victoria. They're training me to do everything. She's like, so if you want, they're looking for more people. So I was like, okay. So I applied and I got the job. And
well, you're too pretty not to hire, right?
Well, yeah, I guess the second time when you bought the
that was never true. I'm like, she's hired.
Yeah, so that's how I started with orthodontics. I worked for Sun Orthodontics, which there's that backstory. I don't know if we want to get into that.
Oh, we will sometime. That's a good long story.
Yeah, but ultimately, all I did all day long was ortho. I was an assistant. I worked with several different doctors. One female doctor that was awesome. And then I moved back to Corpus Christi, and that's where me and you met.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I stopped doing dental, and I was working at a law firm. And
one of the 25,000 jobs you've had. We've been together for like 10 years, and occasionally she'll go, "Oh, did I ever tell you I worked blah blah?" She's had more jobs than I can even imagine. I mean, it's amazing, and she still comes up with like new ones that I didn't know about, and we've been together for 10 years.
I've been working since I was 15.
No, but I didn't know you had a new job every 2 weeks. That's the thing.
No, not really. I mean, I just moved a lot. I moved around a lot. When I was 18, I moved to Austin, and I was all over the place.
And you would just take any job.
Well, I was in survival mode for a while. Like when I was 18, I thought that I could go and move to Austin and go to school full time and work full time. And like I learned that very quickly that it was not going to work out.
Yeah.
So I ended up just quitting school and just working full time.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I mean, as the years go by, rent gets more expensive, and you have to go where you can survive. And when you're young, people just don't want to pay you as much. You don't have experience, which I totally get now.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but I was a hard worker. I still am.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that will never be contested, but from my lips is how hard you work. That's true. But let's get back a little bit more on like how your life led you to NLO a little bit.
Right. Okay. So let's see. We were in Corpus Christi, and I interviewed. Well, I was working for the law firm, and my friend, the same friend, I believe, tells me, "Hey, that same company that we worked for in Victoria has a location in Corpus Christi, but they've rebranded, and
right.
And they're looking for somebody. If you're interested, they really need an ortho assistant." So I interviewed, and it was actually my manager from my old office.
Yeah,
Victoria.
Amy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was like, "Oh yeah, I know you do a good job." So she hired me, or I met you. She said.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I was so new. I mean, I was a brand new owner, but we had the management team still in place, and they basically came to me and said, "We're hiring this girl if she accepts, because we have experience working with her, and she's awesome." And they said, "But just if you're around at lunch, whenever she's swinging by, we want you to meet her." And then that's how we met.
Right. Yeah, I remember meeting you in the clinic, and I'm Dr. Smith, and I just took over these practices. Cool. And I already knew that I wanted to continue in dental eventually, so I went ahead and took that job. And ultimately, that's how we really got to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And, you were going through a divorce. I was going through a divorce at the time. And honestly, I always feel like the stars just aligned for us at the right time. I think that it was perfect. Mm-hmm. And then, so I'll skip the love story.
We can end our love story some other time on another type of podcast.
Maybe we should do a romance.
Yeah, we'll do a romance night one time. We'll come in with a bunch of wine and roses, and maybe we'll do it in a bathtub.
Oh gosh. So then we ended up. So you broke up with I think this is where you should chime in, because you broke up with your partners and you ended up having to move.
Yeah. So long story short, whenever I was coming out of ortho school, I had a mentor that owned what became Smile Life. Before then, it had been branded as Sun Orthodontics, and before that, it was Orthodontics Ltd. And so, as I was coming out of ortho school, which they sent me to, then they paid for. My family was there, and it was very generous of them. They really took good care of me. The deal was, though, for them doing that, I would come back and work at a reduced fee, and basically we would make the math work over a long time. And I loved working for that company, but they went through in Texas there was a big situation with Medicaid dental that at one time they were doing so much Medicaid that there were these large companies doing millions and millions of dollars in Medicaid ortho every year. The company that I took over was one of those companies, but in I believe 2012 or 2011, you can check me on somewhere right in there, the Medicaid program in Texas was cut off, and it was cut off overnight. It wasn't just like it was a gradual thing. It was a huge situation. Most people who were doing Medicaid orthodontics, they had to go bankrupt or had to sell their practice or whatever because they just couldn't make payroll anymore. They had all these patients, but they were not getting paid for treating them anymore. So it was a really tough situation. And there was also a lot of federal pressure. The FBI came in and was giving pressure to a lot of the orthodontists that were the owners of the practices. And the guy that I bought the practices from was one of those guys. He was really getting a lot of federal pressure. And so I did it as a favor. I wasn't at all prepared to be an owner of 5 practices, but I had a lot of help. I had a lot of management help. So this wasn't me being some genius or anything like that. It was just something that I fell into. And that's where Chris and I met. Eventually what happened was the guy who I took over the practices for, his daughters came on. I got along really good with one of his daughters and not at all well with one of his other daughters. So they basically kicked me out. It was a 2-1 vote. But Chris, at that time, you were in school. You were in hygiene school.
Yeah, I ended up, while I was working at Smile Life,
Mm-hmm.
I was a treatment coordinator, I believe, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had applied to dental hygiene school twice.
Mm-hmm.
The first time, I had to redo like chem, and I applied again. My GPA was almost perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone applying it.
Yeah, it was really competitive. Yeah.
Perfect. So the second time I got called in as an alternate, and they just called me like on the second or third day of school,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Hey, if someone dropped out, you're next in line. Do you want to start?"
Yeah, and I remember you came to me and I go, "You." Right, and because I think you felt like maybe you were like feeling like a little bit guilty, like I can't just leave my job, and I'm like, you have got to go.
Yeah.
There's no choice here. And she's like, I think
all I ever did was work.
Well, and I don't were we even dating at that time?
I believe. Well,
maybe a little. Yeah, it was definitely sketchy. But I remember telling you, you don't have a choice. You have to go. Mm-hmm. This is what you've been working for. You'll make it. Well, I mean, I'll help you financially, but you have to do this. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. Yeah.
I was just a single mom, and it was scary. I had just gone through my divorce, and I was like, how am I going to survive?
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. So I forgot what we were talking about.
How we got to, and also like you, so you were already in hygiene school, mm-hmm. and I split with my partners, and so you still had a year to finish, and so I went to work at a place in Dallas, and so we were apart kind of for a year, but I wanted us to still be together, and my ex moved to San Antonio, and so far in my orthodontic career, I'd done some dental before, and now I had some crazy experience in ortho where I had owned 5 practices, but I was nowhere equipped to be that kind of owner. So I had to learn really fast, and I had a lot of people that really helped me a lot. I mean, this was not me just doing it by myself. I had a ton of help, and I learned a lot. And then so for a year, I went to Dallas, and I helped these pedo practices open up ortho practices.
Pediatrics.
Sorry, yeah, that sounds strange. Pediatric practice. Let me get that straight for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about. Pediatric practices. They wanted to add orthodontics into their practices, and they worked so differently. They were having trouble doing it, and I went in there and started helping them, and we were really successful. Actually, it was something that would have been very successful. But my ex with my boys moved to San Antonio, and I asked you if we could be together, and you told.
And the issue with my divorce was we had to stay in Corpus Christi. We decided that's where we got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, he's been reasonable. Let me just ask. Maybe
Yeah, you mean Mike, your ex.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me just
And
ask
you guys get along well, so it wasn't like I mean, he could definitely say no, but it wasn't like you can't go to him and talk to him.
Right. Yes. No. It was. We've been cool for a long time. So I asked him, and I was like, hey, we have this opportunity for our families to be together. Ash having his family, since your boys had been in Vegas for a while, and I said, can we move to San Antonio? And he was like, I do not want to move to San Antonio.
Yeah, I don't blame him, but
He said, but I will move to New Braunfels.
yeah.
I said, I don't know where that is.
Right.
But I know that Schlitterbahn is there.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I will talk to Ash. That's close enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember taking a trip with you, and we just drove down like Creekside.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was a Target
Mm-hmm.
and like the J.C. Penney.
Yeah.
And then all of those other buildings off to the side, going towards where our practice is, like they didn't exist. And
Mm-hmm.
where our practice is now, none of that was in existence.
I
all.
maybe
Not even the building at that time.
Yeah. The only other thing I remember out there for sure was the hospital, right? I think the Resolute was there or no?
Nope, the hospital was not there.
Oh wow. Dang, that's crazy.
The only other thing that was like way out there is Fry-High.
Fry-High, yeah.
Yeah, so they've been there.
That well, and that property is worth $1 million, $2 million now,
Probably.
and it's this old, just rickety restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have cool live music.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a great restaurant. Don't get me wrong, but
It's old.
It looks like their great grandfathers put it together on a weekend.
Yeah. But for sure there was Buc-ee's and there was the Target, and I was like, well, whatever. I think we can definitely, deal with this. This is nice. It's a small little town, and I'm not sure why Mike wanted to live in New Braunfels, but whatever. Don't care.
Yeah, well, and
I think he just didn't want to be in the big city.
Well, and we couldn't have been luckier. I mean, New Braunfels is such a cool place. We have 4 boys, and between Schlitterbahn, the river, the lake, good schools, a huge a community that's not overwhelmingly large, although it's continuing to grow. I couldn't believe we ended up in such a sweet spot.
For sure. I love the Texas Hill Country.
Mm-hmm.
It's so beautiful.
It is.
It's the nicest place in Texas I've ever lived, and I have lived just about everywhere in Texas.
You've lived and had jobs in every place in Texas.
That's why I'm telling you. That's why I've had so many jobs. I've had to move around. But this is where I'm staying now.
Yeah. This is the long
my
one.
last job.
I hope so too. Yeah. And so whenever we got the go ahead, we moved to New Braunfels, and I just got a job in San Antonio, but we started to work on a process of opening Next Level Orthodontics. The reason that I decided to go in that direction, and Chris was so supportive, was that was kind of the last thing that I hadn't done as far as a big checklist. So I had owned some practices that I kind of fell into. I didn't build them though; they were already there. And then I had done it on the other end, where I was putting orthodontic practices together from the beginning, but for somebody else. Yeah. And so I said, the next stop is let's put one together for us. And we kind of had some ideas of how we wanted to make it. I think that it's a little bit different than a lot of orthodontic places that you would walk into. I think that we get that feedback a lot from our patients. I don't think it's just the way that we design it. I think it's the way that we interact with our patients too.
Yeah. That was the feel we were going for, though.
And it was always part of our vision. I mean, in fact, maybe the foundation of our vision was something that we wanted to create that kind of in some way expressed how we would want to enter into an office, right? I mean, something that was a little bit different. We wanted to be something that was, I wish I had a better way or a better word than cooler. I mean,
just the vibe, like we just wanted a different vibe.
Yeah, we wanted a different vibe, and I think that we've really been able to accomplish that.
Yeah, well, the traditional dental office is like has that smell and that coldness to it.
That's the first thing that you always
Right?
get. You know, it
And so,
does. It's
yeah.
sterile. It's
Well, it's
bland
good. It is
colors.
good. It's that it's
It is
sterile.
clean. Hey,
It's clean.
it's clean. Yeah.
But you can do that and also have a cool vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, and I mean, but you won't get that smell whenever you walk into our place, right?
no,
You're all about our smells.
I get so many compliments.
I
on that.
know, I know.
Oh,
I'm used to it. So whenever I
wanna
walk
hear
in,
a
I'm
funny
like,
story I haven't even told you yet?
yeah, I want to hear.
So where was I? I was somewhere recently, and I think it was the dentist that we were hanging out, and
Dr. Barber?
maybe, I don't know. Either way,
Mhm.
someone told somebody else, like, oh, that Dr. Smith, he smells so good.
That's
They were like, no,
it's the office, right?
Like, he doesn't wear cologne.
No, they're lucky if I wear deodorant. So yeah, no, it's definitely the
Well, you
office.
don't need to. You never break a sweat.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, no, our office does smell great. But then also, whenever you walk into our office, I've had a couple of times been so happy that people will walk in and go, wait, I think we're in the wrong place. We're supposed to be at the orthodontist office. I go, yeah, you're in the right place. And that's like a huge compliment because I want them to walk in and be like, this doesn't seem normal.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, we get that all the time.
In a good way, though.
Yeah. And the drink menu.
Yeah, we have a drink menu. You can come in and have an alcoholic beverage if you're an adult, obviously. If you're a kid, you can have a soda or diet soda. Apple juice
is very popular.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I've always wanted to put like a whiskey bar out, but that seems a little bit far-fetched, I guess. We're still family friendly, so that might be a little bit too much to bite off. But we do have coffee. You can go
Well, maybe one day we can just open a coffee bar.
right next. Like, in fact, like that's what Elixir is doing, right? Next to the car washes.
Yeah, I don't think that they sell alcohol. I believe they're like coffee and tea, which they're awesome.
Yeah.
But I want like a shop that looks a lot like this place.
Yeah, this is dope in here. The light brick walls are really cool. The lighting is awesome.
The greenery.
Yeah, this has a good vibe too, right? Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, so anyway.
So that's our story. That's how we started NLO, and let's go into a little bit the experience of opening. Why don't you tell them that little story?
Yeah, well, it was everything I ever dreamed of. Never dreamed of.
Right.
I should say.
You could have never dreamed this up.
Never, ever. I mean, gosh. So we moved to New Braunfels in 2016, and we didn't open until 2020.
Well, and we spent a year looking at buying land and then building a building, and at the end of the day, I just didn't have any reserve money to be able to do that. And somebody's like, man, which was in the long run really good advice because of what happened.
Right. I mean, we would have been in such a pickle.
Right.
But yeah, so we didn't actually start. We ended up finding a spot where we are located now, and we started that build in 2019. I think we spent most of the year doing that build out. And
At least a good 6 months, right?
yeah. I mean, it wasn't a whole year for sure, but 2019 was the year where we were building, and that meant like I was working from home a lot, trying to figure out software, and we hired a consultant, and working with the consultant.
Shout out to Jill Allen, right? She was great.
Yeah, Jill Allen was awesome. Like I couldn't have done it without their team because they're the ones that guided us. And I mean, I've done dental. I know dentistry is easy now.
Yeah, but starting from the ground up is way different.
I don't know anything about starting a practice. So anyway, that was a job in itself.
Right.
Just getting with the builders and all of that. It was a lot of work, but I did end up hiring help. We hired Karina at the time. She was helping me. She would come over to the house and we would work together until the office was open. And we opened on March 7th of 2020. And we saw patients that day, and I believe we started 7 patients. Was it 7 or 11?
I believe it. I believe it was 7, but
I think it was 7.
I could definitely be wrong. It's funny that I don't even know why either one of us remember that. That's crazy.
Oh, I remember. I mean,
yeah, you're so excited. Your first day, right?
You're like,
yeah,
and 7 in one day.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, that is a lot of patients to start in any ortho practice in one day. That's a really cool start. Yeah, right. we were very excited.
Yeah, and I think we had one assistant at the time, maybe.
I think it was just part time, right? Was it Ray that came in and helped us? And yes. I think that I had brought some help from my other practice that was working, because I was working full time in San Antonio, and actually one of the saving graces, or one of the best things that happened, was I had a job where I could kind of cut back and just work a couple days in our practice and continue to do that. So I always had some income. So we didn't just start, fresh with a brand new practice, because in orthodontics, most people were going to finance their treatment, which is fine. But as a company or as a business, you don't start to get that money until, you build up those streams of income. It's not like, you're going to produce $100,000 one month, and then the next month you're going to collect $100,000. It's going to take time to build up that stream of money.
Right. Yeah, and I remember just running around and being the receptionist and the treatment coordinator,
doing everything. That's right.
And records and doing a little bit of everything. So we've definitely grown since then. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that was it.
Well,
it was that day, and then.
Well, the big story that is, we were open for one day and then COVID hit.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the big story here, is that so we immediately went into shutdown. Yeah. And obviously, the whole world felt like this. It wasn't just us, but we didn't know what the hell was going to happen.
Right.
And we had just opened our doors. We had 7 patients in treatment, and I mean, does this shutdown, does it last a week? Does it last a month? Does it last a year? We had no clue.
So do you remember being at, I think it was the AAO, maybe it was the winter conference?
Before we opened up, right?
And we were talking to Mary.
Yeah.
And Mary was talking about someone from a different vendor
mm-hmm.
that said that there's something going around.
No, yeah.
That they can't keep the supply of masks or something like that.
Yeah, well, they were getting their supply of masks from China.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I cannot get you masks. And we're like, why not? He's like, there's something going on in China. Every mask is being taken. We can't get any masks. There's something going on. And we were just like oblivious. We're like, whatever. It'll go away.
I'm doing everything I can, but I'm not sure what's going on. There's something going on. And so that was the first I had heard of it. And then I remember it was around St. Patrick's Day, I believe, that the shutdown happened.
Yeah, I mean, well, we opened, it was in March, right? Of 20, is that right? March of 20th. So we were open for one day on a Saturday, and then I believe it was by the next Wednesday. I think that I was at work in Corpus. So because I go down to Corpus, and I remember when it hit me, we were starting to talk about this virus is kind of going around the world, but what hit me was I was at work and somebody comes in and goes, Denver just shut down every public place, every restaurant, everything is shut down. And this was in the middle of the day. Right. And I had thought, oh crap, this is real.
Right. I remember having a conversation with Karina. She was the only person I worked with at the time. Mm-hmm. And she's like, do you think this is going to be bad? I said, I think that we're going to, I don't think that we're going to be working here soon. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, it was like, got to cut it off.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Well, and the only saving grace for us was that we had one employee. We had one employee because we were that new. And I mean, if it had been 6 months later and we had 5 or 6 employees, I think that would have been a much different situation to deal with. It would have been much harder. But with one employee, we were like, hey, just wait this out with us. We don't know what's going to happen either. And she was already bought into, you know, starting this. And it was just kind of like it delayed our start looking back on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And
it wasn't horrible. You were still working.
well, I mean, I was working, but we had 6 weeks off. Everybody did, right?
Right.
But the whole world stopped. It was just like, I mean, for us, we had enough money saved that we were not worried about anything long term. I mean, or sorry, short term. I mean, if it had been, you know, 2 years or something, yeah, of course we're gonna worry about that. But it seemed like we were in as good a situation as you could be in, considering the circumstances. And I remember at the beginning being very nervous, but in the middle, when everybody was in the same situation, I was like, we're all in the same box here, you know? And actually, Texas ended up opening a lot earlier. In fact, I always crack up because I talk to people who lived in other places, like my parents were, or my mom and my brother were in New Mexico, and they were shut down for in fact, it seemed like they were never open. And, but Texas was kind of like, you know, after like 6 weeks, all right, let's get this show back on the road. And looking back on it, you know, I feel like they did the right thing. I know that there will still be people that argue that point, but I was happy that we were in Texas.
For business purposes, I'm so thankful that happened as well. But yeah, that's how we ended up in New Braunfels and started the practice.
Yeah, and it's a business story, and it's kind of a love story too.
Yeah, definitely. I love working with you.
No sarcasm there at all. But I think that's pretty good for our first podcast, right? Gives people a little bit of background information for us. And I promise we'll get better at this as we go forward, and we can go into different subjects.
Well, and we also need to figure out a name for the podcast.
It's not going to be the next level.
NLO podcast?
Yeah, I mean, the NLO podcast.
Like the Ortho Duo.
Ooh, wow, that's powerful. Yeah, no, you know what we should do is just we'll for the 5 people who listen to this, we'll let them vote on what or give us some suggestions on what they think the podcast should be named, and maybe we'll pick one of those names.
I'm just gonna like hand out headphones.
The winner will get free whitening. How about that? It'll probably be one of our kids.
Oh gosh. Hopefully they brush their teeth.
Oh, right, exactly. All right, guys. Well, I think that we'll sign off for right now, but I think that was a good start.
I think so too.
Yeah, next time we'll bring the wine, and we'll let you guys know. I think that we're gonna make it a tradition as we go forward. We'll bring in wine because we both like wine a lot, and we'll talk about what we're drinking as well. And that'll kind of be the way that we start off every podcast.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And I'll be way more relaxed than I was today.
You were so good.
Yeah, I'm just fidgety in general, I guess. But yeah, it was a good story. I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Love you.